I gotta review 8.5 hours worth of movie? Shit. Hey guys, Dice Rollin' here, and today I thought I would bring you guys a book versus movie review of The Hobbit. Now, I have read the book, and I have seen all 3 movies. And before we get this started... Okay, I'm gonna try to be as unbiased as possible, considering that I am a huge Tolkienite. I have seen all 3 of the Lord of the Rings films and love them, in case that wasn't obvious. And when I heard that Peter Jackson was going to be making 3 films out of The Hobbit, I was a little unsure. Don't get me wrong, Peter Jackson is brilliant and I love his adaptations of Tolkien's work. But I wasn't sure if I would really like The Hobbit that much. However, after seeing the first film, I was already hooked. So I had to read the book. And then I watched the other films as they came out. And there are some things that I noticed that I would like to talk about. First off is Tauriel. Why was she created? As Peter Jackson has probably already mentioned, she was created in order to make the plot for the whole script work. Obviously she wasn't in the book. If you read it, you knew this. She's kind of like one of those OC characters that fans of a certain sort of book or movie would put into their own fanfiction. But was she really necessary? Don't get me wrong, I'm all for having a female character in this whole sausage fest that was the book and the movies. But in some ways, it felt like she was just a little bit out of place. But in other ways, it worked. I'm really not a big fan of love triangles, and the fact that Peter Jackson and his writers added one into this between Tauriel, Legolas, and Killy was... Again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It was actually kind of interesting the way they did it. There was actually no fisticuffs between Killy and Legolas, and I appreciated that. And you also got to see Tauriel fighting for her own love. Sorry, Legolas. She prefers short, hairy men. So again, was she really necessary? Kind of. It's kind of up to your own interpretation of it. But that brings us to another question. Why was Legolas in the movies when he was only briefly mentioned in the books? For the same reason Tauriel was. He needed to be in a love triangle, and he also needed to kick some ass. Obviously, because the book did so well, we probably could have done without both of them. But it was kind of a nice added feature for The Hobbit, especially when you're a Lord of the Rings fan and are returning to the Tolkien world. But another good question is, are the movie characters true to the book characters? Let's start with the dwarves. Thorin and company. Honestly, I have to say I prefer the movie dwarves over the book dwarves. They seem to have a lot more of their own individual personalities than I got from the book. Even Thorin himself, we were able to dive more into his psyche when he was dealing with the dragon sickness than we did in the book. In the book, he goes back to his home, and that's it. It's gold, and he's gone psychotic. But in the movie, you actually get to see some bit of his mental state. And that's nice, actually. And also, in the book, during the chapter, you know which one I speak of, where everything goes horribly wrong and dwarves are killed left and right, didn't have much of an emotional attachment, really. It was done very quickly. But in the movie, it was actually more detailed, and you actually felt sorry for the characters. Now, I don't know about you, but Philly and Killer, it broke my heart. Movie Bilbo is actually very true to book Bilbo, and again, I actually prefer movie Bilbo. Martin Freeman actually put in a little bit of humor to Bilbo's personality that I quite enjoyed but didn't get from the book. This is true for Gandalf too. In general, I have to say that the movie is very true, if not has improved, on the book characters. But what about all that stuff that happened with Gandalf and the White Council? Did that happen in the book? The answer is, we don't know. When Gandalf leaves Thorin and his company, we don't know what happens. And Peter Jackson actually delves into that and kind of shows us what probably did happen. Once again, keeping close contact with Tolkien's notes himself. And tell me you didn't enjoy that badass battle with the White Council and everything in the third one. We even get some really interesting tidbits, if you will, of information in The Hobbit that kind of ties in with the Lord of the Rings. And if you really are into these books and movies, you probably appreciate that like I do. But if you're a purist, and the last question is, why 3 movies from one book? And was it a good idea? There are those people who believe it was a great idea. And then there are those people who believe that Peter Jackson just did it for more money. And honestly, both could be kind of true. But I have to say, I think it was a great idea. If you're gonna try to cram that much of information and action into one, maybe 3-hour movie, it's just not gonna work. People are gonna hate it. Granted that even with that much time allotted to be able to film as much as they could about the book, there were still some things that were left out or even replaced, but they had to be. They have to convert the book to script form and make it work as a movie. There is no way that any book is going to be able to read off the same way for a movie audience. Time had to be taken in order to make sure that they were paying as much respect as they could with the movies to the original book. And in order to do that, 3 movies. So did it work? I think so. Could it have been done with lesser movies or even just 1 movie? Hell no. Would I recommend that you see these movies if you haven't already? Hell yes. Especially if you've already seen The Lord of the Rings. Look at it this way, now you have one hell of a marathon. I also recommend that you read the book. Don't get me wrong, movies are fantastic, especially when Peter Jackson is paying such close attention and homage to Tolkien's world. But there is no better way to be able to experience Middle-earth than to read the books. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the movies, the books, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, leave a comment telling me what you think about that book versus the movies, if Jackson did a good job or not. Because remember, this is just my opinion, this is just what I think, and I would love to hear what you guys think. Also, don't forget to share, maybe there's another Tolkienite that you know of who would like to see this video. And subscribe for more reviews on many different book versus movie titles. See you later. Oh boy, that hurt. Explains a lot, don't it? Anyway, let's take a look at what the first book is about. Our main character here is Anastasia Steele, a senior in college who writes for the college's newspaper. She ends up getting sent to interview this entrepreneur